18th meeting of the Lane Transit District Board of Directors to order with roll call. Susan Cox, Michelle Weber here, Pete Knox,
Here.
Lawrence Green,
Here.
Heather Murphy,
Here.
Gino Grimaldi,
Here.
and Kelly Sutherland. Okay. Susan and Kelly are excused for the evening. We will now move into public comment. And for anyone online that wishes to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Brianna, do we have any public comment?
There's no in-person or online public comment.
Okay, great. We will now move into board reports. LCOG, Pete?
LCOG board had a meeting at the end of February. There was the main thing that had to do with LTD is there was an annual report for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and that'll be your next thing, so I'll just report on that now. We didn't have a meeting for that this month, but there'll be an in-person hybrid meeting in April. I can't remember where it's going to be located.
Okay, thank you. Lane Act, Heather?
We didn't have a March meeting, but I don't know if there was anything in between our last meeting and now, Jameson?
There was a steering committee meeting just this morning where they were talking about future topics, but last month's was canceled.
Okay, thank you. Strategic Planning Committee, Gino?
There was a nice summary in front of you. I don't have anything to add beyond that.
Okay, great. And the Bylaws Committee did not meet in March, and we anticipate convening this committee in the coming months to work on board bylaws updates. All right. Next on the agenda is the CEO report.
Got confused, thought that was a standalone item. So today is National Transit Employee Appreciation Day. So we celebrate all of our workers today, all of our employees. It was a good day, continues to be a good day. We continue to provide great service. But we want to highlight one specific transportation worker who is our Employee of the Month this month, and it is Carrie Stewart. Carrie is here with her supervisor, Rebecca. You may remember Carrie from various things, but most recently the dedication of the Operations Command Center. And so Rebecca is going to introduce you to her a bit more.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a woman of few words, so I had to write this down because I get nervous. So I'd just like to read what I wrote about Carrie because I want to make sure that I get it across for how much I do care for her. So if I have a moment just to read this. Carrie was selected as Employee of the Month for demonstration of values of respect, equity, and collaboration. And I see these qualities in her every day. But as her supervisor, what stands out to me most is her integrity. Over time, I've come to realize how much that is important and how little sometimes we see that in people. It is not always the easy road, or people don't always see it. And so this is exactly what Carrie is a good example of. And I saw that clearly in the OCC project. Carrie put a lot of thought into making sure that the dedication truly honored the people who came before her. She didn't just focus on getting it done, she focused on doing it right, even when things weren't easy. She brought people together, created a process where voices could be heard, and made sure that it was fair and open. Because of that, it turned into something really meaningful with the dedication to Phyllis Luby. Carrie shows up with honesty, takes responsibility, and truly cares about the people around her. That has a real impact on our team and the people we serve. She goes above and beyond in ways that feels natural. She builds trust, brings people together, and makes those around us better, including me. We are really lucky to have Carrie on our team, and I'm proud to recognize her today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. It's nice to be recognized, and I'm glad that Rebecca's sitting up here with me because her support through all of this allowed me to thrive. So thank you for everything you said. Thank you.
I get the fun stuff here.
Yes.
I appreciate the few words. I also like fewer words, so I'm right there with you. We have a poster to
Awesome.
celebrate you, a letter,
Thank you.
something fun. It looks like
Yes,
spending
money.
dough and a pen.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Moving next to recognize another employee of the district. We have an Employee of the Month, but we also have what we call the Heroes Awards. We have so many employees that are doing great work in the community, so we wanted to be able to have an avenue to recognize them when something extraordinary is happening. And you're about to hear something extraordinary. So Adrian Nixon. Adrian's been with us for not quite a year and a half, right? Not quite a year and a half, getting close. But he's being recognized today because he saved a person's life down at Eugene Station. He came across someone that was non-responsive and issued Narcan. We've gone through Narcan training, and he recognized the opportunity to do so and stayed with the individual until the medics arrived. And so we want to recognize him for his efforts in recognizing a need of a community member and answering the bell. So thank you, Adrian. Finally, I've been waiting for that. So going into the monthly operations report, just want to highlight just a few things. We're seeing our rolling 12-month ridership, it's about 3.1% below. So this is reflecting ridership on MX dropping. As ridership on fixed route is increasing, on MX is dropping a little bit. And we'll talk about that in our presentation on the fare evaluation for MX. Over in our mobility services area, we're seeing an increase in van pool usage. We're trying to put our finger on what that is, but we do know that we have a new employee in marketing, new to marketing, not new to LTD, after a 30-year career driving a bus. Now she's talking about our services in schools and doing a fantastic job. So we're seeing increase in the van pool program, and we'll put our fingers on that a little closer for the next report. We're also seeing about a 0.5% increase in our mobility services. Those are the services that include the Cottage Grove Connector and our ADA paratransit service as well. The last thing I'll point out is that, of course, we've been tracking absenteeism for about a year now. Absenteeism continues to go down. It went down to 12.8, down from 18.2 last year. So we continue to see that. We're hiring folks. As you know, we have more operators on board now, and we're trying to see what those needs are to make sure we have people healthy and coming in to work. So I'll stand for any questions relating to the operations report.
Any questions? No? Okay. I love to see that absenteeism rate go down.
Yeah, our customers too, for sure, for sure. The delegated authority report, no, I'm sorry, the monthly department reports. I'm going to invite Wendy and Joe to highlight a few of the significant areas in the department reports. I'll invite Joe to go first.
All right, thank you. Welcome to your new space. You all look good up there. We've done a lot of visioning exercises to how this would look and how you would look and how you would sound. So welcome to your new space. This is specifically designed for the work that you do. So that's why we've mounted the tables the way we have. I do want to point out Brianna and Todd Smith in the back room, our project manager. their work and input on this space was integral to how it came out. So thank them for their work and the other staff that worked on this as well. Some specific goals about this space, just want to highlight, as I'm sure you're well aware, we've had some technology issues in the past. So primary goal was to have reliable, best-in-class technology in this space, designed to broadcast all of our public meetings as well as our internal working meetings using other technology as well. And I hope that you enjoy it and use it well. Happy to take any questions. I will say we did come under budget and on time, so that's always good. And a quiz for later. We won't do it now. Todd quizzed me a few weeks ago. There's 5 species of wood used in this space, and I know I've chatted with a couple of you on that. So we can come back later and see if you got it right. But thank you, and I think that's all I've got on that one. Yeah.
Just a quick comment, if I could. It feels comfortable and very functional, and appreciate the thought that went into it. I can feel that there was a lot of thought that went into it, and it works.
Hi there. I just want to bring to you 2 reports, one for our marketing department and one for our HR department. So for our HR department, we are looking at the metrics for the last year. You're going to see a report coming through from Taryn Klein in April. We're going to talk about like what the year in review for 2025 looked like. But part of that, I really was excited to see our retention, our employee retention amount that we want to set for this next year, our goal. And so for the year 2024, that number was 18.9%. Last year, we got it down to 9.6%, so a pretty significant change. You can see some of the changes that we've made over this last year really kind of coming to fruition with the retention of our staff, which is very exciting. And so this coming year, we actually are going to set it for a 14.3% goal. The reason why, just in February, or excuse me, in January alone, we lost 5 employees to retirement. And we are including those numbers to include our retirement because that is a recruitment process we have to follow. If we took those those retirements out, that number would probably be more like a 4% for last year, which is amazing. And so just continue to see the great work coming out of the HR department that we're really proud of. Another area I wanted to focus on real quick was marketing. So as you guys came in this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me, you saw the pictures in the lunchroom with all the student photos. We've had some in here. And so that's been a contest that we've done throughout the community, the marketing team led. We ended up having 95 submissions, which we were really impressed with. The biggest school that we had, 2 schools, Sayusla had 24 submissions. Sayusla Middle School and then Lowell High School. So 2 of our rural communities really stepped up, and it was our 2 highest submission groups. Overall, we had 69 middle school students participate and 26 high school students. So really, really great. And what we're going to do is award the best picture sometime in April, and then also take those pictures and turn them into bus wraps. So we'll hopefully get those done sometime late this spring, hopefully April, May-ish, and then those will stay on our bus until next spring when we do this contest again. So very exciting, and happy to take any questions you guys may have on either area.
Not a question, but a comment. If the Lowell student is a finalist, I have very little touch point, and that's part of my district, and very little opportunity necessarily to engage. So I would love to know if they win or a finalist and just submit a little note with whatever is sent, just as an opportunity. That's great.
Okay, yeah, we'll let you know for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I got one.
Lawrence, go.
So what do you guys do with the rest of the pictures?
So we're still looking at that. What they want to do is decide another project maybe we could put those on. We will display them on our website, but then also maybe there's some other ideas inside the bus or other areas we can display. There was a lot of really creative, fun work, and we're really proud of the submissions we received. So we want to make sure and spotlight that. There was a lot of time and effort that went into that, and so we want to recognize.
Okay. So I understand from our conversation earlier that they're going to get some special rides on the bus system as recipients of the winning folks, the folks that win?
Yeah, can we bring Eric up to answer that question? That I'm not sure.
Hello. We don't have any plans for any special rides since all the students do have access to our free student transit pass program already. We'll definitely find some unique ways to recognize them and also celebrate their submissions and the winning submissions.
Okay. I haven't brought Mr. LTD to light in a while, so I'm just recommending that if for some reason those bus tours happen, that Mr. LTD should be invited to attend with those students.
Great. Thank
And
you
he's
for that
giving me the
suggestion.
stink eye, but that's okay. And I did have one question on the digital social media numbers. $65,000 down is a big number, so I'm just wondering what the timing of the measurement for those numbers comes from. Like current month to previous month, what is the time frame?
For the impressions
Yeah.
being down?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was likely due to some influence from paid campaigns. We track those separately from organic, but they still can influence organic campaigns. So that's likely what was happening there. But we are comparing calendar month to calendar month. So that would be compared to the previous calendar month.
Okay, thank you. It just was a big number, so it kind of caught my attention. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving forward into the delegated authority report. It's in front of you. Any questions on that? Straightforward. Okay, then we'll go right in. We'll invite Andrew Robinson to present. We talk a lot about secession. We have part of our goals that the board has identified for this year is about secession and developing workforce. So we wanted to spend some time to talk around the strategies that we've been employing for the past year and then where we plan to go moving forward. So Andrew's going to present to you where we are as an organization and highlight some of the work and how it's aligned with some of the other strategies that we've done. Andrew.
Good to see you all again. I think we met last fall and met with the chiefs. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me here tonight. Really appreciate it. Yeah, my goal tonight is to give some backdrop of how things are progressing over the past year, and then talk a little bit about the future. So to set the stage, I'd like to draw back a little bit. I think with every project, especially one of this importance, it's necessary to remind ourselves of the why. So I'll begin with why this project, and so we can anchor ourselves in that moving forward. In order to give you an idea of the magnitude of innovation that went into launching this project, I want to pull back and give you some idea, not just within transit, but elsewhere. This research would say that about half of all organizations, not just public, but private as well, do anything about investing in their leaders. So about half don't do much. The other half do some, but it typically comes in the form of short-term gains. So many of you are familiar with the typical approaches, right? Conferences, workshops, they invite consultants, coaches in. Distributing leadership books. I was just talking with someone today about how they're passing out leadership books, and there's the best intent possible goes into that. The problem is that they're developing the solution before they even know what the problem is, and what that typically leads to is what we call FOTM. You're all familiar with ice cream. It's the flavor of the month. So what ends up happening in leadership development is organizations cycle through different programs. So there's one this month, and then there's one next year. And what that ends up doing is it actually develops a level of skepticism about what's coming next. And people almost hold their breath for what's going to come back from the next conference as the new silver bullet with leadership development. So what we want to do is challenge some of these short-term gains that are high on inspiration, but low on transformation. They get people really excited, but when it comes to actually measuring long-term success and transformation, it's wanting. programs without systems to sustain them. So we have a program comes in, and organizations typically come to depend on those, and they can be very effective. Again, this is not to disparage those efforts at all. But the insights and intentions without operational application invariably default to baseline behavior. We're all human. No matter how inspired we are about something, no matter how great our intentions are, invariably we default to what we were doing before. And there's a larger picture that I want to draw attention to going into the conversation this evening. And for some reason, the slide's not advancing. If you can do it manually, thank you, Brianna. What this amounts to is leadership development as an expense. So you're actually assigning money to something that is not providing a return. It's actually an expense. So you send someone to a conference, the average conference, if you count loss of productivity and so forth, can cost a single individual about $15,000, $20,000 when all is told. And they come back, and again, with the best intentions, nothing comes of it. So all that money is going to waste. And what we want to do is move more toward what the LTD has chosen, which is ultimately you've chosen to build an investment. You have obviously a charge and a responsibility and a privilege to figure out how to assign taxpayer dollars. And what we're offering is, and what we're bringing here is something that can compound over time, because what we're developing and what we're implementing is not a solution in search of problems. We've actually designed and continue to design the solution around LTD's unique challenges and opportunities, and many of the people in this room are helping shape that. So that's the ultimate goal going into this. Let's talk a little bit about the progress and where we're at now, and would love to field any questions you have. And one thing I want to highlight immediately is what we call the chief success factor. And the work that we do as an organization on behalf of the clients we work with is dependent in large part on the buy-in from executive leadership. And the buy-in that we have gained from LTD's executive leadership and the chief's team, it has enabled us to actually move forward ahead of schedule. And so we met with them for the first time June 13th, and from day one, they were committed to developing themselves as individuals as well as a team. If they had chosen not to do that, that would have hampered a lot of our efforts. But in fact, their commitment to working with themselves, devoting themselves to growing as leaders, has enabled us to move ahead. So we want to recognize that first and foremost. We have 3 focus areas. And the first focus area, because leaders shape culture, is the Chiefs group. And so working with executive leadership development, and so we have structured quarterly offsite sessions, all-day sessions, and there we're talking about leadership development. We're reviewing what we're hearing from the pulse groups. So part of the goal there is I'm taking a lot of the feedback from, again, many of the people in this room, and often within 24 to 36 hours, bringing it right to the Chiefs' attention, and we start working on strategies moving forward. Secondly, the Chiefs, and this is voluntary, they have each chosen and committed to working with a coach on our team, Susie. So they meet monthly with Susie. They have specific leadership development processes, development plans that are tailored to their unique growth edges. And again, I was just talking to Susie this afternoon. She said, tell them, like, the amount of work that the Chiefs are putting in to the person on working with themselves is extraordinary. So that's directly from Susie. So that's the first initiative. The second is organizational discovery and assessment. One of the things I talked about was wanting to build solutions around the actual problems that LTD is trying to address, the actual opportunities that LTD is trying to address, not just showing up with the solution. And that's where these pulse groups come into play. We have selected, I should say the Chiefs selected a number of, I think we're at 35 people, 30 people give or take. And the basis for selection was people who, on the one hand, are strong proponents of LTD and the mission. On the other hand, are willing to bring critique, suggestions, criticism, how can we get better? And so we formed that group. And that group will evolve and open and include other members in the coming year. So what we did with that group is we meet roughly twice per quarter and get their input on how things are progressing. The issues that they identified in the first round of the pulse groups is now shaping much of the initiative to this day. So 5 issues surfaced, and you will see those in this integrated findings brief that you were given. Those 5 issues did not come from the chiefs. They actually came from the pulse group. And what the chiefs have done is they have then organized specific steps around those 5 issues. So the pulse group plays an integral part in the success of this process. Secondly, or thirdly, I should say, the third leg on this stool is what we call the whole system leadership activation. And this gets to the previous, actually where I started with why, which is building a system that will sustain itself. And so what we are doing is we are partnering with directors to help shape and develop a leadership development system. We are piloting it this spring with a view to scaling it throughout the organization starting in FY27. They're help shaping the themes that are most relevant to LTD. In other words, what kind of leader does LTD need to address the future challenges and opportunities of LTD? And we're building the program around that. So that's the third piece. The brief includes a synopsis of 2 different surveys that were deployed, actually 3 pulse surveys that were done analog on paper that we collected. And then in conjunction, we did this in conjunction with Xenium, the independent third-party survey firm. What was interesting is the surveys, when they came together, corroborated one another, which I think helped bolster our confidence in the kind of data we were seeing. So again, you can go into more detail on that. A few highlights that stood out to us: relationships are real, trust in the executive team, and just a general sense of goodwill toward the executive team, toward the chiefs, came out loud and clear. That's largely driven by one of the biggest themes that we heard in the Pulse group really on day one, which is the incredible devotion. You all know this, but it's part of what makes it such an honor to work with LTD. The incredible devotion to the mission of LTD, to the person. We met with, I think it was 5 or 6 different groups, and it was like, to the person, when we asked them what made them proud to work here, it was the mission. It's what we're doing for the community. But that can't be possible without the trust in chief leadership. So that's a theme that's coming out. Still work to be done, absolutely. What we want to do is see that trust then be systemic throughout the organization. And then also positive changes from employee feedback. What that's saying, and this is an important piece, is as employees share feedback, and one of the other data points you'll see in that is the degree to which employees feel safe sharing their opinion. That's not true of every organization. You know that. But at LTD, people feel safe to share their opinion. And what's better is we're starting to see an upward trend where what they're suggesting is actually translating into action. Again, more work to be done, but we're seeing that trending in a positive direction. Some other work that still needs to be done, workload on projects. So closing the loop on projects. As you all know, there are numerous projects going on simultaneously at LTD, and it makes for a lot of spinning plates. But there's a need and an effort to learn how to recognize closing the loops. We're done with this project. Now we're moving to this project. Everyone's on the same page. As well as the second point, a strong desire to clarify priorities. Okay, if I'm going to work on this project, is this the priority? And if so, what am I no longer working on? So now we're moving into some system solutions for FY27, which I'll get to in a second. But so it's obviously work to be done, and much more detail in that brief. Encourage you to read that as well. But just to summarize, what we're looking at in the future, what we're looking at in next year, is really moving from programmatic work to systematic work. How do we build the systems that are necessary to address some of these issues, some of these opportunities? So FY27, we've identified these 5 priority systems: development pathways, recruitment and onboarding, retention, succession planning, and then scaling this organization-wide. Part of the impetus for this is many of us have heard about well-known companies, Disney or Marriott, and they all have their leadership development pathways. The day that you walk in there, John Deere has a fantastic leadership development program. You show up at work and day one, they have a pathway laid out. This is how you grow as a leader here. That's exactly what we're building. It's going to take time, but I think through persistence, through dedication, through the collaboration and support of the Pulse groups and many others, the directors, and of course the chiefs, I think we're making progress in that direction. So very exciting. It's an absolute honor to work with LTD, to be able to be involved in this effort. But I think in general, the simple message, the takeaway is, the work is working. Still work to be done, but the work is working. So thank you. Any questions, any thoughts, any additional comments?
Gino?
Impressive work, thank you. What can the board do to help you with these efforts?
Oh, gosh, thank you so much. That's exactly what I talked about, the buy-in from the chiefs, and in so many ways, your care and support for them makes what we do possible. I would invite you to be involved. Let's talk about other opportunities. We did this in the fall, I think, and we've actually talked about this. Finding another opportunity to bring you in to one of the sessions to help integrate that even more, to keep you abreast. What I'd love is for you to experience it personally. Some of the things that the directors are developing, some of the things coming out of the Pulse groups, to actually have you experience a sample of what we're putting together would be fantastic, if you're up for it. I'd love that. Yeah.
I'm up for it. Everybody else? Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Any other questions?
No questions, but I echo Gino, and this is great work, and just reading through this, I mean, it's very in-depth, and you're right, we don't see this in most organizations. Talk about it, there might be some efforts, but it's very good that we're working on the systems level with this, so I appreciate it, thank you.
So, over time, the people in the room, people who sit here, people who sit there, are going to change. How do we, and you may not be here, how does this continue to live on?
Yeah, that's a great question. The entire view from day one is that this becomes a self-sustaining operation, a system. Not that we're going to abandon, walk away, but our goal is to develop a system that runs itself. And so it includes, that has to be driven by the people that work here. And so that's the number one goal. And so starting in 27, that's one of the systems that I had listed to prioritize, is getting that in motion. Because if it doesn't happen without the people here, it won't happen. So it's an incredible opportunity. So we'll draw from other models, like I said, Disney and Marriott, and we've seen other models that have worked, and so we'll bring those. I think what's exciting to me is when you start thinking about LTD on the front edge. I mean, y'all understand how innovative this is, right? This is so in keeping with LTD's trying to push that front edge of innovation. You get known nationwide as this is the place to come to develop, right? Not just in transit, but even outside of transit. So it's an incredible marketing tool to attract talent to LTD, to retain talent, some of the retention numbers that Wendy talked about. We fully anticipate, and we typically will see those numbers improve, we'll see engagement numbers improve as a result. So I think it's really exciting to see what's on the horizon. Yeah, thanks, Gina.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Andrew. You're absolutely right. Buy-in is so important. I've had many opportunities to sit in team building, leadership, growth, things that haven't been successful because that buy-in's not there, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Can I add one thing? And Andrew hit it on the attraction and retention piece. But the real piece of this is not a strategy for strategy's sake. We're literally trying to change the corporate culture of what LTD is from 5 years to the next 50. And part of that has to be the ability to manage well, understand how to support people, because the needs of the county are always going to change. They're going to continually change. So we're trying to build a culture that can facilitate an organization that is responsive to the needs as they change. So more to come. We know that we did a lot of good work gathering data this past year. My feeling is this year is the pivotal year, and when Andrew talked about the return on conferences, we would be in the same position if we don't sink this down into the organization. So the board can help a lot, and you already have. If you go back and look at the goals that you put together for the coming year, this addresses at least 3 of them. So you're seeing what we're seeing and sensing the needs of the organization as well, and we're going down the right path. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to MX Fare System. This is a rarity for me, a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, Amy's done it, so I'm going to handle it. Some time ago, we started talking about MX and BRT, and we were having conversations up in Salem, and some of the questions are around, how efficient are you with managing the money that you're charged to manage? And part of that is, collecting fares for the service that we provide. And we wanted to look at our MX system because the BRT systems are designed much differently than our fixed route system. On fixed route, you get on, there's a fare box right there. It's right next to the bus operator. You pay your fare, you go sit down. On BRT, the fare is handled off board. The door is all open. You get on, and the assumption for the operator is that you've paid your fare. Has components of rail, but without the significant component of rail, which is someone is driving the train and someone is walking up and down the train collecting fares. We don't have that on our BRT system. But what we do have is the ability to verify that fares are being collected by validating the fare, and we do that randomly and on board the vehicle. So we'll ask for your ticket. We have a machine that checks if it's valid or not, and we move forward. So last year in June of 25, we installed validating equipment on board the buses and also handheld with our public safety team. And we targeted, we did an intentional campaign to look at our BRT system and focus our strengths there to see what fare evasion actually looked like, because we couldn't tell you. So in the month of June, you'll see there, and those numbers across the bottom are the months. So you'll see from June to August, the number went down, but then you see it go way up in September and October. It's high. This is the red line. It's high in I'm sorry, this is the blue line. The blue. You see a ramp all the way up in December there. That red line that you see is when they inspected a fare and it failed. So you see it drop real low in 8 and that number creep all the way back up in 10, and you see it drop back down in 12. So what that's indicating to us is as we have increased our presence on the BRT line, the MX lines, we're starting to see that fail rate come down. You see it where it comes all the way down in December. So people were having more valid fares. Next slide. Well, what's really interesting is the revenue. So on the revenue, we've seen that there's about a 5% increase in total revenue collections, while the ridership has gone down, which tells us that a lot of the folks who weren't paying the fare are not riding, and we're collecting more of the fare from the riding public. So it goes back to having that presence on board helps us to do a better job in our fiduciary responsibilities of collecting our fares. I want to point out that our our public safety team gets a lot of training. So when they go out on the bus, it's not like gung-ho police showing up. Their first activity is to assess and help. So a lot of times when we saw those fail rates, they were corrected on the spot. Like people had, they were able to go and tap the machine. So what that tells us is a lot of the folks that weren't paying, it wasn't a matter of intentionally not paying. It was a matter of not realizing that they could go tap on that machine. So we'll talk about that in, I think, the next slide or the following slide. So Brianna, thank you. So here we see a summary of what we found. And again, we had increased our fare checks by 200% in that time frame. So we saw ridership being flat. So we know that's not the driver of the increases in revenue. As our inspections increase, that indicates there's a higher level of our engagement with the public. Our revenue's gone up, so it's higher revenue capture per rider. We're noticing our touch passes are up about 12%, so people are starting to adopt this technology. Every time I would ride MX, I would look and see who's actually going to tap it, because there's still no one there really watching you. And it turned into almost like a gamification of tapping the pass and seeing the equipment turn green to say that it was good. Now, it's embarrassing when it turns red, because it did that on me, because I had a bad pass, and I got called out on it. But, people are starting to adopt that technology. We're seeing less cash in our ticket vending machines, which means we don't have to handle cash. There's less leakage, higher compliance by using the passes. And then our monthly passes, they're down about 6%. Which means that people are adopting those touch passes a little more. When you use the pass and you ride less, it actually makes your cost per trip higher, because the cost of the pass stays the same. So we're seeing the adoption to the more flexible fare route here. So is there one more slide there? Yep. So next steps for us, this is all good information. When we looked at our fare evasion rate and compared that to other systems, it's about the same. We estimate it's between 10 and 14%, and we think that can come lower. Part of what we plan to do is have more clear messaging and stop announcements about fare required, so that people know and how they can handle their fare. We're going to continue to do this work to monitor where the numbers are going and what the experience is looking like through our PSOs. And then also an integration of our safety data. So we look at real and perceived safety, and we know that safety perceptions on fixed route are either help or hinder ridership adoption of that service. So we're going to look and see how this plays with the perception of safety on the system as well, and we'll be bringing that back to you. So I wanted to share that with you. A lot of work went into this cross-functional team, not just our PSOs, but they certainly were the boots on the ground. Our business intelligence group and our operations unit and our operators all played a role in this, and our planning team all played a role in this. So good opportunity for cross-departmental work that's meaningful work and gives us insights to how people are interacting with the service. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, or I'll phone a friend if they're too hard.
Any questions? No? Oh, Pete, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, a couple things. First of all, this answers a lot of questions that have been rattling around in my head as far as what is going on with ridership and using the validators on the MX system. Second thing, I haven't, as I've been riding, I oftentimes ride the MX. Charlton Station is right next to where I live. I am seeing our security people on there, visibly on there much more frequently. Their fare checking is, it's really smooth. They've people are pretty, they're pretty relaxed about it. Also notice that just in general, people are just almost automatically ready to use the validators as they step onto the bus. So people have gotten into the habit over the last, 9 months or so that you've had it. So thanks for all this information. I think it's actually helped quite a bit as far as keeping people honest.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. We'll invite Sam Kelly Kutroki to speak. Sam's going to give an update. He's been kind of busy, sort of busy, maybe busy. Sam's going to give an update and a review on the Oregon short legislative session.
Thank you. Yeah, we're on. Cool. Good morning, board. For the record, Sam Kelly Kutroki. I'm your government relations manager. I brought a guest this time. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Anna Sovereign with Oxley and Associates. We are your contract lobbying team in Salem.
So Anna and I are here today just to kind of go over the last session. Anna to back me up in case you all ask hard questions, as always. Just for a brief historical record, so Oregon, we have a long session, a short session, odd number of years, long session, 6 months, 180 days, lots of big ideas, lots of hearings, lots of testimonies is the goal. And then an even number of years like this one, the short session's only 35 days. The initial idea behind that being maybe a little cleanup, a little touch up here. Legislators are limited how many bills they can introduce. More of a sprint than a marathon would be a good way to describe it. Short session's getting busier. We're getting more and more things in there. Less bills are being heard that want to be heard. More bills are kind of taking up time depending who you talk to. So we had a great session this year for sure. It was a great time for everyone. 304 bills were introduced. About 35 or so LTD and Oxley tracked in the Oregon Transit Association. Of those, 3 or 4 we were actively lobbying for or against. I'll start with highlighting just a couple that were the biggest priority for transit. So House Bill 4008. This is a transit funding task force. Coming out of the 2025 long session, there was a transportation package that would have included an increase in the statewide transportation improvement fund, or the STIF, which is the payroll tax that funds transit. After that package came out, Republican leadership immediately started collecting signatures to refer that to a vote. Oregon law allows you to collect signatures. They were able to get the amount needed, I think, threefold within 30 days. That says, hey, we as citizens want to vote on this. So once that happens, they don't collect the new revenue and it goes to a vote. Initially November of 2026 when that vote was going to happen. So coming out of that, we were hearing a lot in our meetings that transit, while supported, folks, I think on both sides of the aisle, don't love the payroll tax as being the only way to fund that. Payroll tax is a tough one. It's always around us. So the goal of this task force was to look at transit funding across a wider range of areas. It was a 19-person task force, both chambers, both sides of the aisle, business, nonprofits, transits, all kinds of leadership folks in there. Partway through the session, we got word from the governor that she is planning a similar idea for all of transportation, and so our task force bill kind of took a back seat from leadership. They wanted more to support the governor and see what her task force will look like. So while this bill ultimately didn't pass, we do feel confident in the governor's support of transit. She made it very clear early on before session that she wants to protect the STIF, that it needs to be for transit, not for anyone else. So while our bill didn't come through, we are still looking forward to working with her. Hopefully this week she'll announce that 11-person task force and some of the subcommittees that will have happen with that group as well. Another really large one, so Senate Bill 1599. This one was very controversial, took up a lot of airspace. This moved that same referendum from November to May of this year. So the referendum, what the Republicans wanted us to vote on was the STIF increase, a gas tax increase, and then some licensing registration fees increase. So those 3 items got pulled out from November. It did get passed after much heated debate. There was a day of walkouts over it. They did come back together to get some work done. It is being shifted to May. Upon that bill being signed, Republicans have already started looking towards further legal action. Their argument is the referendum clearly said November. It's the will of the voters to have that vote in November. This was pretty split on party lines. fund, so I feel fair saying Democrats' argument is we want to get the answer to this sooner rather than later. If the answer is no, which a lot of polling indicates it will be no, we should know that in May. So we have much more time before next session in January of 27 to figure out what we can do differently. If we don't know this till November, we only have 2 months to prep and prepare for something else. So that's kind of where it is right now. I think we'll know the answer when the vote's over. When we have it, it'll get pushed around a bit. I think there's still more work being done on this one. Other non-transit related bills, but really high priority topics. The transient lodging tax, or the TLT, this is your tax on hotel stays. Very historically loved tax by business communities because it really self-sustains itself. When you stay in hotels, the tax that's collected by cities and counties has to go back to tourism and tourism-related activities, 70%. 30% general fund, you can do what you need, what you want with it as a city, but 70% goes back towards arts, culture, hotel improvements, a lot of great things like that. A bill was passed that swapped those requirements. So now only 30% is for tourism, 70% for cities to do what they want to do with it. Obviously, Travel Lane County, tourism industries, hotels had lots of issues with this, but ultimately the city-county voice and the need for more flexible funding won. For transit, why that matters is the Rhodey Express is funded by TLT, so they use their dollars out in Florence to pay for this service. So I always keep a close eye on what transit lodging tax is doing and why. Our Rhodey Express is a very clear tourism driver. It goes to the casino, to the hotels, through downtown to Old Town Florence. So that funding is still good, but kind of keeping an eye on what Florence may or may not shift that money around in the future. They have some more flexibility now. The Prosperity Roadmap is a focus of the governor. I think it's fair to say economic development in Oregon has slowed in the recent years, and we're seeing a lot of bigger businesses leave or not choose to establish themselves here. And the governor has identified that as a major priority for the state. Developing a prosperity team, this roadmap idea came out. A lot of excitement pre-session for some bills. Not a ton of bills came out of session, so folks are still wondering what this will look like in actuality. For Lane County and for LTD specifically, this project will fund what's going to be called the Southern Willamette Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor. This is a look at U of O and OSU, Eugene, Corvallis, how to fund what the Knight campus has started and expand that to bringing students together, heavily involved in research, spinning out job creation from graduation, and then keeping that here. So a lot of what the groups are looking at, the mayors, the OSU and U of O presidents, will be funding from that prosperity roadmap, tax opportunities, new funding opportunities. So we'll keep an eye on that. They're mirroring it off of the Innovation Triangle in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and what they have is an incredible transit network. So LTD knows that for this to really work, we need to be a key partner in this, and we're already starting those conversations now with folks about what they look like, where they want to develop, and how to make sure transit can serve that area. The last big one is the ODOT budget. This is going to sound familiar because every year for the past 5 years, ODOT's come through with budget concerns. This year, what they did differently was they really opened up all of their revenues. So in a very public open meeting, they brought forward a 5-page document of here's all of our revenue, from things like the STIF, our payroll tax that funds transit, to federal dollars, to safe routes to schools, to bridges, to infrastructure, gas tax, whatever it was, and kind of gave the legislature a kind of carte blanche of how would you want us to redistribute these funds. They also brought forward cost reductions. They want to make sure they're analyzing that as well. 3 levels of layoffs or not filling vacant positions. Ultimately, the legislature did pass a bill that funded ODOT, primarily looking at redistributing federal dollars, safe routes to school capital improvement programs, some seismic and bridge upgrades. Again, because of the governor, I think in large part transit was unaffected by this. The STIF will stay with transit. So there was funding for ODOT. They are good to operate. They won't be doing huge layoffs. They're not going to fill some vacant seats, but they should still have plowing of roads and those kind of work. But that is short-term capital dollars. We're going to see ODOT again next year. This is not a solution. The gas tax in the transportation package was supposed to be that long-term ongoing revenue solution. So they'll be back with new questions and new issues for the Senate legislature in January for sure. Lastly, I just want to kind of touch on what's next and maybe some more things that Anna and I did. I came to you all in January at the board meeting digitally to talk about a legislative strategy document. It wasn't so much policy. I think our policy will always be support transit, but it was more a cadence of meetings and strategies. Who should we be engaging with? Who should we be talking with? And rather than report back that I had a dozen meetings, Anna probably had hundreds. That's not as meaningful as who did we meet with and what were the outcomes of that. So our goal for January before session was identifying key leadership, both in the majority and the minority party, meeting with them, governor's office, to kind of get a little bit of like a, hey, how you doing? We're LTD, you may not know who we are. So ranging from Senator Pham up in the Portland district, strong supporter of transit, really knows TriMet, maybe doesn't quite know about LTD and what we're working on, talking to her about what could a stiff increase look like, how would we fund new transit, to the complete other side of the aisle, Senator Starr, from a more rural community, more conservative, talking more about how do we do transit in our small rural communities? What is Diamond Express service like? How is Cottage Grove growing? How are we piloting things? Not really having an ask forum, wanting to know what matters to them, what their priorities are. So we were able to accomplish all of those meetings before and during session, kind of get that our name to a face for them. Leading into the next 9 months, we're going to continue these meetings, but we have a chance now to establish what does success look like for you all. The board's made it very clear, housing, health, workforce, education. How do you want to support that in your districts and show the leadership how transit can play a key role in those as we define success together and what that might look like leading into the January session. The last little piece locally I wanted to touch on as well. There was a few things to be shaping up in the coming local election session, but the big one you might hear about is a Lane County Watershed Bill of Rights. So that's been coming out from some environmental groups to give the watershed legal protections. The Chambers of Commerce are coming out against that. They're doing a lot of education and outreach about it as well. I think the Springfield City Club is having an open meeting tomorrow if you want to go down to Roaring Rapids Pizza to kind of hear about it. So you hear a lot of that coming up as well. That would allow folks to provide lawsuits on behalf of the watershed to places like governments and businesses. So we're tracking that and being aware of it, and may be coming to an election in the May or November ballot. So that was a ton of information. I don't know, Anna, if there were things you also wanted to touch on or provide. If not, we can see what the board has other questions for.
Well, I want to say you have a great lobbyist in Salem. Sam does an excellent job and gets along with everyone, which is a key part of how you do this job. So you're very well represented by him. And it's just been a pleasure working with him, working with Jameson and some others who have had a chance to make it down to Salem. So thank you for taking that time. I think the only things I would add are the ODOT reallocations. It's $218 million, so it's a pretty substantial shift away from the investments Sam talked about into the State Highway Fund. And then I would say another big win for this session, and will continue to be the goal, is just protecting the STIF. And so while we weren't able to double the STIF as legislation passed last year would have done, and unfortunately that's very much on hold, unlikely to get that increase, we are at least protecting what we already have, and while we assess other options for long-term funding strategies. And then the other part, the transient lodging tax is, they actually switched it to a 50-50.
Oh, my God.
It's okay, 50-50. But that whole conversation was very complicated. There's a lot of negotiations that went around, and that isn't even applicable to every city. It's just depending on what their current collection is. And so it's a very heated discussion in Salem with a lot of people on either side. But that was the only clarification, but excellent job. Yeah.
That's kind of all we had. Questions, comments?
Gino?
Early in your presentation, you talked about opposition to the payroll tax. Could you explain, if possible, why the opposition's there? And I find it curious because we're seeing other local governments move to the payroll tax or try to move to the payroll tax.
Mm-hmm.
Always nice to know why.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question with lots of layers to it. I think one thing we're seeing a lot of polling right now is cost of living is too expensive in Oregon, and there's been a lot of new taxes come before the legislature recently. I meant to look it up beforehand. I might owe you this in an email later, how many new taxes we've established recently in Oregon over the past 5 or so years, but it's been quite a few new ones. I can't think of anything specifically about the payroll tax. I know for transit, there were concerns about ODOT is the state's priority. Transit, is that a state priority or not? Do we need to shift funds from transit to ODOT and leave it there? And I think some concerns about ridership numbers decreasing post-COVID, how is that payroll tax being funded and who is it supporting and how? So I think a lot of work to be done educating on that. It is a very secure source of funding in the sense that it's easier to increase as you grow jobs and grow the economy. I think with LTD and TriMet has one as well, the employer payroll tax. Some feedback we were given, I think quite clearly, was grow your own economy, grow your economic base, work with your chambers in your cities, and that'll be a way to see your revenue increase rather than looking for an increase of the percentage, but grow your base. I'm not sure if you have other insight on that one.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much hits the nail on the head. I would just add, for especially far-reaching, more rural communities and legislators, it's harder for them to see the benefit directly. So they don't have an MX running through town. They're not there maybe with riders who are reliant on stiff dollars that get them to their medical appointments, especially in rural areas. We know that's a huge benefit. And so because it's less, the only visual they get, and they'll mention, well, buses are empty or whatever it may be, is kind of the arguments that they'll use. But especially in those very rural areas, it's more of a challenge for them to see that direct benefit as a public good. And so I think that's been something too we've been working on educating folks on, is the SIF very much benefits very directly rural communities in their access to different services. So that's been it, yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, in this report, we have a draft advertising policy. You'll recall, I believe it was last budget cycle, we put money in it, we put advertising revenue in the last budget cycle. We want to have a policy around what that looks like, and we know that it can be a sticky thing. So we wanted to bring a draft policy before you today for your feedback, and I'll invite Eric Breitenstein, our marketing director, to speak to the policy.
Good evening, everyone. Eric Breitenstein, Director of Marketing. So as Jameson mentioned, the identification of additional revenue streams has been identified as a strategic priority. This is also recognized in the board-adopted 2026-2028 strategic business plan. And we really wanted to, as a precursor to that work, have a policy in place so that as we explore potential contractors to assist with this type of program, they have a clear understanding of what LTD intends to allow or restrict when it comes to advertising on any LTD assets. Our intent is to establish objective, clear, and consistently applied limitations, and also recognize our First Amendment responsibilities as a public agency. So this is carefully crafted with that in mind, also crafted in consultation with our legal team for guidance as we work through this process. Also note that we analyze a number of other policies from agencies, including agencies that have needed to defend their policy or revise their policy following challenges. So that those concerns were top of mind when drafting this. You'll note that this policy identifies LTD's interests, and the purpose here is to kind of thread the needle and have some restrictions in place so that LTD's assets are not seen as a public forum. So we want to have a more narrow view on the types of advertising that's allowed. So advertising that's marketing products, some nonprofit advertising in a more limited sense, and also public service announcements from other partner government agencies. We also, so in this policy, we identify content that's allowed, as I just mentioned, as well as restricted content. And the intent with those restrictions is to have a content neutral approach. So you'll see some more broad categories that are restrictive. So rather than picking and choosing specific issues or topics that we restrict, we try to have a more general approach. You'll see some exceptions to that when it comes to products that may have age restrictions around them, and that really goes back to our intent and our focus on the youth audience. We recognize that the youth audience is a large portion of our ridership, so we want to make sure to not have products advertised on our system that they're legally prohibited from purchasing. There's also at the tail end of this policy, there's some administrative processes that are defined. So that establishes a process. If someone were to challenge our application of the policy, there's a defined process in place for them to appeal that decision. That includes first running that through a defined committee. And then if they want to escalate that further, there's a final review step through the CEO. And with that overview, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Gino?
I understand the need to be content neutral, and I saw in all of these but one being content neutral, and I could see rationale for not doing something on the bus. The one that caught my eye was the prohibiting the promotion and sale and use of a firearm. That seemed to be kind of taking the side of a fairly controversial issue, which there are two sides to. And I'm just having a hard time seeing it being content neutral.
Thank you. For that, I would reference the age limitations around that one. So while recognizing that there is controversy around that product category, the intent here isn't to take one side or another on that controversy, but is rather to not use LTD assets for the promotion of products that have age limitations in place.
So an example, there are gun safety courses put on by various organizations. Some of those would apply to people under the age of 18, hunter safety courses. Would we allow hunter safety courses to be advertised on our buses under this policy?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and something that we can go back and review and see if there's a need to refine any language around that. But that's something we can definitely know and explore further.
It goes down a slippery slope. I was passing the fairgrounds just today, and what's happening at the fairgrounds this weekend? Looks like a gun show. So my question, would we prohibit the gun show folks from advertising the fact they have a gun show at the fairgrounds, a public facility, under this policy?
Yeah, perhaps under the current language in this policy, the specific promotion of the purchase or use of the firearms would be restricted. But definitely feedback that we can consider, and that's exactly why we are discussing today.
I guess that's very problematic for me. I don't own firearms. I'm a firm believer we ought to be restricting the types of firearms that are being sold, but I don't want to use LTD as a forum to promote my personal view on firearms.
And that's absolutely our intent, is to not take a specific position.
It feels like we are.
I think, oh, sorry.
No, I'm done.
I keep doing that. To your point, Gino, right above we say promotes the sale or use of alcoholic beverage. That's also age-related. I mean, it's legal for adults to see wine advertisements or what have you. This one says promotes the sale or use. I hear what you're saying about firearm safety class, but the sale for sure, yeah, I hear you. I have questions though, because we do have some other things in here that I think is totally appropriate, like not promoting, certain things. And yeah, it's interesting. That one stood out to me too, but in a different way. So.
Before I ask for other questions, I just want to, I might be the only board member sitting here tonight that remembers a conversation and a vote to eliminate advertising on the buses for a lot of these reasons. Plus the fact that defining neutral viewpoints, I think we need to be really clear what that means. Because one person's neutral is not necessarily going to match another person's neutral. So these are kinds of, this is the type of conversation we had a few years back when we agreed, in addition to whether or not it was really bringing the return on investment, was it worth the concerns that surround the types of wraps that we might see on the bus. And back then, there were some fairly interesting ones that I was seeing. So I have some concern around this, just using our buses as an advertising tool in general. So I would want to be really, really clear as to what we are going to allow.
Yep, so with the, hear you loud and clear, appreciate that feedback, and I believe that the intent of the policy is to not take a stand, so, on any side. So we'll take this back, and this is exactly what we wanted to hear, was your feedback on this. So we'll take this back and do some work on it with those points in mind, and then bring it back to you at a later date. But we certainly understand the sensitivity of it, and we do not want to be a political forum at all. But we do need to figure out how do we move forward in a responsible way. And if the question is whether we should revisit advertising, we previously went the other way, but if we want to revisit whether that juice is worth the squeeze, then that can be part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to bring that history forward, because again, I might be the only one sitting here that remembers that conversation. So any other questions or comments for Eric before we?
There's quite a bit in here that could go either way. I appreciate the work. But to your point, yeah, it might be a slippery slope.
Okay, thank you. So more work?
Yep. Thank you for the feedback. And thank you for the work, Eric.
Anything else?
And with that, I'll conclude my CEO report. Sorry about that.
That your,
I've been writing notes.
just giving you a chance to finish any other thoughts you might have there. Yeah, go ahead.
Did legal review this too, as part of the process, or not yet? Are we draft form? Not
Did one
there
of my
yet?
colleagues work on it? I haven't seen it, but, okay, so a colleague did. I haven't looked at it. I know this is a really tricky
Yeah.
area, so I appreciate
Yeah, okay.
your concerns. And I'll follow up with Eric.
Okay, great, thanks all. Next on the agenda, the monthly finance report. Pete, would you like to take that one?
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, everybody. For this year, on page 38 is the AIS, and then the monthly financial report that will ends in January 31st of this year. So this would be 7 months into the fiscal year. The big story this month is that we actually got a fair amount of revenue. That's kind of expected because of quarterly taxes, and so we got a good chunk of payroll tax revenue, which is actually a little bit up this year. So we're in good stead there. Any questions? All right.
Okay, thank you, Pete. All right, next, the consent agenda. And before I ask for a motion, I just want to make a correction in the resolution number. It should be 2026-03-18-08. And with that, I would call for a motion.
Oops. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Did I do it?
Second.
Thank you. What's that? Oh, thank you. Okay, we'll call for the vote. Pete?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
And Michelle says yes. Next, board action items and adoption of resolution number 2026-03-18-09, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract with New Flyer of America for the purpose of replacing 3 60-foot buses for fixed route revenue service. And I would entertain a motion.
I move approval of resolution number 2026-03-18-08.
09.
Second?
09.
Okay, any discussion?
It's 09, is that the one you're doing?
Yeah, 09.
Okay, I just wanted to make it clear.
They're all kind of tight there, so. Any discussion? Nope, okay. Call for the vote. Pete?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes?
Lawrence?
Yes.
And Michelle, yes. Okay, next item, adoption of resolution number 2026-03-18-10, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract with New Flyer of America for the purpose of replacing 7 60-foot MX fixed route buses for revenue service. I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-03-18-10, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract with New Flyer of America for the purpose of replacing 7 60-foot MX buses for the fixed route revenue service.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Pete?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes?
Lawrence?
Yes.
And Michelle, yes. All right, next, adoption of resolution number 2026-03-18-11, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract with Oregon Department of Human Services for the purpose of providing non-medical transportation services. I would entertain a motion.
I move what you just said.
How's that?
Perfect.
Discussion?
Yeah, did you make a second?
No, I just said question, but I can say,
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you.
And
Discussion?
Medicaid K, what exactly, what population?
Yeah. I'll invite John Allen.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. So this is a subset of the Medicaid-based population that's case managed through Senior and Disability Services, who's receiving some level of in-home care.
So all of this is for the senior population?
Yeah, generally older adults, people with disabilities, folks who are on very specifically the Oregon Health Plan K plan.
That's, okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure I'm clear. Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Call for the vote. Pete?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes?
Lawrence?
Yes.
And Michelle, yes. Voting business. If there's no other comments or good for the order, we will adjourn the meeting. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.